action.
Hey, it's Lynn. Oh, it's Lynn, and this is
Liam. Hey, what's up,
Liam.
everybody?
And welcome to our ins and outs this week. I don't know what week it is because I've kind of lost track of everything in the universe.
I think this is our 8th episode.
Oh, that's good. 8.
Yeah.
Me and Liam are both like pretty floral today, and I think we're both in a weird mood, so you might be in for a very interesting video.
Definitely.
So this week I'll go first with my article, and then Liam will go, and then you'll all smash that subscribe button and leave comments and tell us how cool we are, and then we'll go on and have a good weekend. So Liam, this week my article came from CNN.com.
I saw it.
And you'll put it in the link so people can click it. And basically, it was a survey, or it analyzed the results of a survey of 9,000 people about how often they're having sex. And it turns out that the rate of people having sex is decreasing in general, which I'm shocked by. But it also turns out that the rate of young people having sex is like significantly decreasing, which I'm super shocked by. The one thing that they said was among 18 to 24-year-olds, it used to be 1 out of 5 people were not having sex, but now it's 1 out of 3.
Okay.
That's a lot, right?
Yeah,
to think that 1 out of 3 people in like this time period had 0 sex. Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, that does seem like a lot of people not having sex.
Yeah, and I think what really blew my mind about this article in general is that there's like this stereotype of like, oh, young people are doing it and they're being irresponsible and blah, 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 blah. But like this survey of 9,000 people done by a university says otherwise, and says that people are actually abstaining from sex. And they even analyze it to suggest why they think it is. And so women with higher incomes are having less sex, and they suggest, which I think is very awesome, that because they have higher incomes, they have like more resources to be more picky. And so like, oh, I can, go to other places, and I have money to occupy my time otherwise. I can go on vacation by myself, and so I don't have to like hang out with people I think are like not worthy of my time. Although it also makes me sad that that's only higher income people who fell into this category. The other thing is low income men were having way less sex than high income men, which it's like a TLC joke.
Yeah, I mean, do you think like it kind of, with like the difference in income between like women who make more money have less sex and men who make more money have more sex, do you think it kind of goes hand in hand where like women who maybe aren't making a lot of money turn towards sexual partners to try and like cover balances and things like that?
That's possible, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really old stereotype, but maybe it's has some like basis in reality.
Yeah, you didn't laugh at my TLC no scrubs joke?
Sorry, I got it. I didn't think it was that funny.
I don't know how old you are, Liam, but as somebody who was the right age when No Scrubs came out, I really loved that song.
I think we're the same age.
Oh, I don't know. I was born in 1988.
Yeah, me too. Libra.
What's your zodiac sign?
Libra.
Oh, that makes sense. I'm a Pisces.
I'm a little Scorpio.
No, you're not.
I don't know what Pisces means. I don't actually know what any of that means. I know Libra is
Pisces are like emotional and they overreact and they're like tender. So I'm a spot on Pisces.
Yeah, I mean, after doing that talk with you about how to get along with your partner during the coronavirus, you definitely calling people's moms about washing curtains.
Can I tell you that this is a reference for anybody watching this, we did a talk about how to be in a relationship during coronavirus, and multiple people told me how much they appreciated my tips and my candor. So listen, I may have exposed how much of a wacky partner I am, but people can really relate to that.
Definitely. People love relating to like real human emotions.
So the other things I found interesting was that they suggest that younger people are having less sex because of delayed adulthood, which I think is just another way of saying like that stupid avocado. Like, oh, millennials are spending all their money on avocado and they can't buy houses. And so they're saying like, we are unable, I am out of this category, but I identify somehow as a younger person.
All millennials are actually out of this category because millennials are all in their late 20s to early 30s nowadays.
Oh,
These are all
anyway, 18 to 24-year-olds like avocados too. I bet you they buy more avocado than people our age.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're saying that because of like the lack of financial stability, people are having less sex because they're like reliant on their parents or their guardians, or they are unable to buy a house and not ready for babies yet. And so they're not having sex. Which just shows you that capitalism causes so much disruption, including disruption to our sexual life.
So I actually had a question about two things, like especially with like the people aren't growing up quick enough, so they're not having much sex. But the rates of like teenagers having sex, I feel like hasn't changed much over the past decade. Not the rate of them having sex, but like when you lose your virginity for the first time, right? Most teenagers lose their virginity between 17 and 21. And that I feel like hasn't changed much over the past decade. So people are still losing their virginity at the same age range, but then they just like stop having sex once they lose it?
I guess so. Like, yeah, you're right. Because they've engaged in sex. They're just not having sex during this period.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my husband about this. And he suggested that like there's so much stress in the world, right? Like student loan debt and job insecurity and not making enough money to pay your bills, so you need a second job among like this age category. So it's also like an impact of capitalism. Like they just like you don't have sex when you're stressed generally. Some people do, but it's much harder. And so he suggested maybe that was part of the cause.
I can see that. I was also wondering if the lack of sex among poor males who make less money is another like part of this like wealth gap that we're seeing, and if it's going to lead to like more stressors on poor people, because like sex is an awesome release for people oftentimes. And
health disparities, right? Because sex is like we've learned a form of exercise.
Mm-hmm. And it's just a form of like it decreases anxiety, it decreases depression, all sorts of stuff.
So they said that sex among all people were really going down. So maybe not the adulthood as the cause, because older people and married people also saw a reduction. Mm-hmm. So I think that supports the theory of stress, because we're just in a much more stressful time. But they also suggested that the existence of like social media and internet change people's behaviors in the way that, and I'm not talking about pornography. I don't think they're talking about pornography. Like, oh, I have so much more digital option. Oh, on Friday, July 3rd, I can stream Hamilton. And so like maybe 4 times next week, I'm going to watch Hamilton instead of engaging in sex.
I am very excited to watch Hamilton, but I agree that like, I think if you're like partners sitting there on their computer, right, and they're doing something, they're playing a game, they're typing or whatever, it's hard to like be like, hey, like, let's go have sex, right? Like I've had that trope before where like I might want to have sex, but I don't exactly know how to just be like, sometimes I do. Sometimes I'm like, shut the computer and just like, you know, I'm very obvious about it. But sometimes like, I just am not that obvious about it.
Right, and it makes it easier to be like forgetful about it. So it's like, oh, I'm upstairs playing my train game. I play Ticket to Ride on my iPad.
Oh, Jay plays Ticket to Ride on his iPad too.
I love Ticket to Ride. I'm very good. If he wants to play, I'm trying to think of a good name for myself. But so if I'm playing Ticket to Ride upstairs and he's watching whatever the anime app is downstairs, like we're both incentivized to not go near each other. And so like, we just become too distracted. So even if we wanted, it's not like we're not interested. It's just like, oh, I'm in my own world and he's in his own world, because digital worlds exist.
Definitely. And he might, like, his episode might end, right? And he'll go upstairs to like see what you're doing. and you're in the middle of a game. And he's like, okay, well then I'm just gonna go downstairs and watch another episode.
Right. And so the internet, while people think it's good because of pornography, it's actually killing our sex lives.
So one question I have about though, we talked about like how maybe it's because of stress, maybe it's because of this or that. Is it bad though that people are having less sex now?
That's a good question. Well, it might be worse for your health.
It might be bad for your health.
It might reduce unintended pregnancies though.
It might and STIs.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you're having sex in order to deal with anxiety or depression, is that a healthy way to deal with those kind of things? Kind of like what we talked about, like, is it okay to drink just because you're mad or upset? Is it okay to do drugs because you're mad or upset? Are those healthy ways of dealing with these things?
It might be good for the environment because like unintended pregnancies, the more people on the planet, the worse the environment gets. So like that might be better.
Definitely. The world's already very populated.
Although people want to have babies, they should. But if it reduces unintended pregnancy, that's different.
Yeah, unintended versus intended pregnancies. But like, I don't know. I'm definitely super sex positive. I think having sex is great. I think it's really important to have sex with your sexual partner. I think it builds like a really nice bond between you and the person you're dating or living with or whatever. But I also don't know if it's a bad thing. Maybe it is like not having human connection is probably bad, right?
Yeah, actually, before I read this article, I was going to talk about the impact of coronavirus on sex. And one of the things was like the lack of touch and like the craving for touch is like going through the roof because of coronavirus. But like that, the physical act of touching somebody is so important, right?
Yeah.
If you like touch. And so like it probably, if you're not being intimate, does probably have some sort of impact on your mental health if you want to be.
Yeah. I've been having sex most of my life. And for most of my life, since starting to have sex, I haven't gone more than like a month without having sex. But one time a few years ago, Jay was in India for almost 2 months. And so that is the longest since losing my virginity, I feel like, that I hadn't had sex. And I definitely, I never felt flesh hunger or like whatever that term is that people have talked about until that experience. And when we got back together, Jay told me too, he was like he couldn't hug people. He wasn't like there was just no like connection with another human body, even in a non-sexual way. Because like we hug our friends, right, and things like that. He's like, I haven't touched another person more than just like maybe a handshake at most in 2 months. Like he was like, it's the weirdest experience in the world.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah, it was really sad. It was really hard. I'm happy he has not ever had to go away for 2 months since then.
So I guess the tips here would be if you want to have sex where you're letting digital things get in the way, be more intentional.
Follow my rule of having sex once a week if you want to.
I didn't know. I've told so many people that rule, but I've never told them it was from you because I didn't know if you wanted people to know that.
Oh, no.
But I think that's a solid rule.
Yeah.
You have sex once a week. Maybe once in a while you let some time go by because like, oh shoot, I was sick this week. But like being very intentional about, like I'm intentional about my exercise. Why wouldn't I be intentional about my sexual behavior?
Definitely. And like, sex is, I think personally, sex is really important for my relationship with my husband. And so, yeah, I think we can, especially we've been together for over a decade. It can be really easy to kind of just like forget about having sex and just like go a long time without having sex. I've talked to friends of mine who date people and it's not that they don't want to have sex, but they just kind of go without having it with their partner for a long time. And so I think making it like, we really should be doing this. We really have to put the work into it.
Yeah. But I also like the idea of being super picky.
Super picky?
Yeah, like these people who are like, oh, I have plenty of things to keep myself occupied, so I don't need to have sex with people that I do not find meet like all of my sexual criteria. Definitely,
yeah. Like, don't have sex with someone unless you really want to, right? Like, if you want to be picky, be picky. If you don't want to be picky, don't be picky. Like, if you just want to like go out and like do it, right?
Yeah, but I like that people have more options now.
Yeah. Although
So
maybe that's,
are we ready for your article?
yeah. So I, last week we talked about Black and brown sexology bloggers and writers and things like that. And so I was scrolling through them, so I really wanted to use some of their articles this week. And I landed on Sexology Bay, who describes themselves, actually I think she uses she pronouns, but they describe themselves as a sexuality and pleasure aficionado, which I found a really nice way to describe yourself. Instead of like a sexologist or a sex educator, a sexuality and pleasure aficionado. I just know everything about sex and pleasure.
Yeah, and like I have like a cigar aficionado, like appreciates quality and like, yeah, that's a good vibe.
Yeah, I like it. It's very like upscale and like fancy.
Yeah, like high standards.
Yeah, and she sounds really awesome. And so this is actually way back in October of 2019 for Coming Out Day. She wrote this blog post about her coming out and her experiences as a bisexual person. And so she says at the age of 9, and so the reason this article was a little bit older, so I was thinking about like maybe not doing it, but it is still June, so it's still Pride Month. And a lot of things she said in here kind of like stood out to me from my own experiences as coming out. And so I was like, oh, that's really cool. And so at 9 years old, she realized she wasn't straight. And I had very similar feelings. Like I remember from a long, long time ago, knowing I wasn't exactly straight. And, I think back then, I didn't have language to like describe what I felt, and B, like, I just didn't know exactly what I felt, but I know like, like I was attracted to my friends. I was attracted to like people on TV that were dudes. And so I knew I wasn't exactly straight, even from a really young age. And then she talks about how when Katy Perry's song came out, I Kissed a Girl and I Liked It, she thought this was like her moment to shine, where like bisexuality was going to be this like thing. And she was in high school at the time, which I think I was in high school probably at the same time. And
I love that song, by the way.
Right, it was such a good song. And it was like people, I think, when that song came out, and when that song that white rapper dude does, where he the love song.
Macklemore?
Yeah, Macklemore's like gay love song. I thought both those songs were gonna like, open up the conversation, make it more acceptable. But like she said, her song, when Katy Perry song came out, people still like were calling lesbians like bull dykes and like things like that. And so it was just, she was like, it was okay to be bisexual if you were being bisexual to arouse men.
Right.
And I find that really interesting, and also like most of them real struggle, right, for a lot of like bisexual women, especially, who like their bisexuality was only sexuality for like the patriarchy.
Yeah, it's frustrating to me that like men. So I guess my example as who identifies as straight. When I was in college, I had a friend, and we were really close. We were really good friends, and we would always hang out, and we were like just very close. And men would offer to pay us to kiss each other. Mm-hmm. And they'd be like, oh, I'll pay for your, we were drunk and we were out. I'll pay for your taxi home and I'll buy you pizza if you'll like make out with each other. And it's just like, what is this like weird fetishization you have of like two women kissing, but then you like treat two women disrespectfully if like they don't fulfill your expectations of like hotness and sexiness.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it's just like, being bisexual, I feel like, is a really hard identity to start with, for both men and women, because people just often like negate it or brush it aside. But especially like for women especially, when your bisexuality has just been like sexualized so much, it can probably be like really, really annoying and stressful.
Yeah, it's like three-way jokes, I'm sure, all the time.
Yeah. And so like another thing that I found really interesting about her article was that when she was in high school and she tried to start claiming her bisexual identity, she was often shut down for trying to be edgy. Like, oh, you're only bisexual because you're edgy. And so in high school too, she was dating a guy who she ended up marrying. And so I feel like people thought because she was dating this dude, she was just saying she was bisexual to be edgy. And I, as like a gay guy in high school, was also like, I didn't have like the same exact experience, but like, I remember parents telling me and my friends, me and my like boyfriend at the time, his parents told him that like, oh, it's just a phase, or like, you know, boys just jerk off together. It doesn't mean you're gay. And it's like, no, like I know what I am. Like, yeah, okay, maybe boys do that together to experience themselves, and that's totally fine. Like straight guys do that. I've done that with when I was younger with people that identify as straight now, and that's totally fine to like explore your sexuality that way. But like the fact that like so many, at least in my day, gay people were just kind of like, oh no, like that's every boy does that. It's not, you're not gay. Like that's really.
Well, and then nobody says it. Like when I was like making out with dudes in weird pickup trucks, like nobody said like, oh, Lynn, that's just the phase, like, right? Like they were like, oh, well, you should probably not do that.
Not a phase. What you say?
Yeah. I was just highly discouraged for other reasons.
Yeah. And so, and also like, I remember one time there was this girl who I was like really good friends with, and we would hang out in her room, and her parents told me I wasn't gay. I was just lying to them so I could get into their daughter's room. And I was like, who does that? Like, really?
Yeah, that's an elaborate lie.
Yeah.
You know what that reminds me of, though? What? I don't know if you've heard this, because you and I both are in schools a lot. And a lot of adults will say, not that about being bisexual, but they'll say it about being like gender fluid. Mm-hmm. They'll be like, oh, I have a gender fluid kid in my program or my class, but you know, I don't think it's real. I think it's just a phase. And so now I'm concerned that people who identify as gender fluid or queer might be experiencing a very similar experience as this person, the sexology bay.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think it totally continues going on nowadays. And again, yeah, definitely probably starts this whole, it's probably going on with this whole gender thing, because when I was in high school, like gay and queer was the whole new thing, right? Like everybody wanted like that gay best friend and things like that. And now I think trans and gender is going through a very similar process.
I also just don't think it matters. Like, even if you're right and it is just a phase, maybe you should just mind your own business and like let people explore through their processes. You know what I mean? Like you have to try things and drop things. Like that's just life. So even if you're right, which you're probably not, like just let people explore what is interesting to them at the time.
Yeah. Like who cares?
Right? Like when I did interesting things with my hair or join club, like just let teenagers or anybody just mind your own beeswax, as my mom would say.
Yeah, I mean, like, especially for, you know, puberty age people from like middle school up until you're 21, 25 years old and you're done with puberty. That is the time you're supposed to be like finding yourself and trying to identify who you are. And you should have a lot of freedom to do that. If you want to explore your gender, explore your gender. If you want to explore your sexuality, explore your sexuality. Do all these things.
Right, and like, do you want to be responsible? If you are an adult in a kid's life, do you want to be responsible for like squashing their exploration, which could lead to like lifelong, like what if people saying that to you, Liam, led to you stop identifying publicly as gay and like you're living a different life than you truly want to because like all this judgment, because when you're a teenager, that stuff matters to you a lot.
Yeah.
And when you're an adult, like you might be messing up somebody's life. Definitely. For long periods of time.
You know, I think people's ideas of me, like either trying to make me like think I wasn't actually gay or things like that, I think it pushed me into being like more stereotypical gay. And I've talked about this before, where like when I was in high school and like early college, I kind of like absorbed this like really like gay thing, like this gay personality. That I don't think was the authentic me either. And I think that because people, like I needed to like prove to people that I was gay, it made me kind of, I go into this identity. And it wasn't until like I was in my mid-20s where I was able to be like, you know what, no, like that is not who I am. I can do whatever I want. I can be whoever I want. And like, If I want to be like a bro sometimes, I can be a bro sometimes. If I want to like do something that's more like feminine or gay or whatever, that's fine too.
Yeah.
And
I
I think
do like that you have a very interesting and dynamic set of interests that are like not stereotypical. And because that's true, right? Stereotypes are not all true.
yeah,
And so like I find your interests to be very diverse and not fulfilling of stereotypes.
definitely. And I think like, so I don't have any like gender queer kind of feelings for myself, but I think, I mean, I don't want to like put feelings on other people, but I do think or feel that like a lot of the gender confusion that people have when, not that when they're transgender or not, but like when they're gender queer, is kind of all about this whole binary masculine feminine kind of thing that, oh, you like this is more feminine, this is more masculine. And even when teaching about gender identity, I have such a hard time talking about like, oh, so you know, like you might dress in a more feminine way or you might dress in a more masculine way as your gender expression. But then I'm like, well, what does that even mean? Like, what's a
Right.
feminine
And
way of
are we
dressing?
like perpetuating the stereotype by saying that? Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Like if we did not have these very firm rules, would the fluidity even need to, you know what I mean? Like there would be no need to differentiate if we didn't instill these rules on society. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I
you know,
think that, yeah,
if we would just like, yeah, like if you want to paint your nails,
wear whatever you want.
yeah, if you want to wear whatever you want, wear whatever you want. Definitely. I think, yeah, I think a lot of the struggle that we have nowadays is just because we have this like binary that we try to fit people into, whether it's who you're having sex with, how you want to dress, how you want to identify, whatever.
Right.
Just let people be. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much everything I was going to talk about for there.
I had something to add.
Yeah.
I thought her perspective, which you mentioned briefly, but because she married a man, like people assumed she was no longer bisexual, but also that like people make a lot of assumptions just because, oh, I met this person. Like, so if somebody meets me and I'm like, oh, this is my husband, right? The automatic assumption, the default is like, oh, she's straight, right? Because she's married to this man. And so like her identity is like so directly connected to an assumption that's made just because of who she chose to marry, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah. And I also liked, she was like, she met the person she was going to marry in high school. And so she thought that she didn't have to worry about her identity anymore. And then it wasn't until college where she was like, oh no, I do have to I do want to figure out my identity and how I feel about myself.
Yeah. I mean, there's all these like stereotypes about bisexual people, like, oh, they're confused, or oh, they're gonna marry a man and they might cheat on the man with a woman. And I do, the bi-erasure in society is really like massively problematic.
Definitely.
I think.
Yeah. And even like, what show was it? I feel like it was maybe the Real Housewives of Potomac, which I love. One of the characters on there, she's bisexual, and she's married to this dude. They had kids a long time ago. Not a long time ago, but they had kids, and she wanted to explore her bisexuality, and so she wanted to have sex. She wanted to have an open marriage where she was also having sex with women. And her husband was like, okay, that's fine, but only if you're not having sex with men, and I get to have sex with other women too. And I was like, that's a weird stipulation for an open marriage. Not that I'm judging anybody's open marriages or anything like that, but it is like, I find it strange. There's layers of strangeness to that for me.
I think there's some male feelings there.
Yeah.
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 I also think it's interesting that you don't hear about a lot of like bisexual elected officials, right? Like there's lots of, oh, this is the first openly gay, this is the first, you know what I mean? But if you think about it, like there's not a lot of talk about like bisexual people in like prominent positions, or like I struggle to think of like a lot of popular bisexual actors.
I think a lot of bisexual people have a hard time claiming that identity, especially in like
Yeah.
the public eye, because it's so like pooped upon.
Yeah. I really liked this blog post that you picked.
Yeah, me too. I liked Sexology Bay is hilarious. They do really great stuff. There's actually a few that I really wanted to talk about. One was written on my birthday last year, and I was like, oh, it's not my birthday. It's all about all the stuff I want to talk about, but I chose this one instead.
I do think that people should go listen to the Katy Perry song again, because it is so much better than you remember.
Is it?
Yeah, no, it's got like this real industrial vibe that you don't remember from, like, you have it in your head as like this cutesy pop song, but there's like an industrial vibe. I just re-listened to it recently. It's a banger.
I like the one she does with Kanye West, I feel like.
The one about being an alien?
Yeah, the alien one with Kanye West.
Yeah,
yeah.
For sure. Okay, you won't be here next week, Liam, so I'm gonna do this with another educator who I've not confirmed yet.
Next week, the week after.
Oh, so you will be here next week.
I'll be here next week. Although, so next week's July 3rd.
I might be busy watching Hamilton all day.
Yeah, and we technically aren't working.
I mean, we could always just film it on Thursday.
Yeah, so maybe we'll film it on Thursday. You guys get it extra early. And then the following week, July 10th, I think it is, I will be camping. So we are going to have one of our other coworkers come out and do it, but we haven't asked them yet, so we're not going to tell you who it is.
Okay, bye, Liam.
All right, see you later.